very much, Radhika. First, just to check, can you all hear me okay? Is it better with the mic? Yes? Okay, well, we'll carry on and we'll see how we go. Lovely. Perhaps I should just get the presentation up. Might be a good idea. Hello, more people. Please do come to the front as far forward as you can. Please do come to the front and sit in groups because we're going to be working together.
Check.
Come as far forward as you can. We're going to be working together in groups. Super. Okay, well, thank you all very much for coming. I hope you're all sitting comfortably. Just want to check everybody, that you know where the exits are. Obviously, we have 2 exits here, and you know where the exits are for emergencies and bathrooms. I hope you all know where they are too. So as long as you're all comfortable and ready to go, we'll make a start. As Radhika says, I'm Stephen Carey, and I work on global marketing for IELTS. And today what we'll be doing, we'll just be taking a little journey through Washback, but Washback made simple. Yes, I'm not going to launch into a huge research presentation. It's Washback made simple. Some of you will know all about it already, I'm sure, and will know more than me, and others may have never heard of Washback. So I'm expecting that we'll have a mixed audience here, and that's great because we can work together in groups. And then also, unsurprisingly, we'll be looking at the IELTS test towards the end of the session as well. As Radhika said at the start, I'm afraid we are a little bit limited for time today, but I'll bash on and we'll try and complete everything in the time available. Is it okay if I'm wandering around? That's all right? Super. So I think the first thing to do then is, if you could, ladies, please do come forward. Come forward, yes. If you could, if you're in threes, it's fine in threes, or if not, in pairs, either in groups of 3 or in pairs there. If you could just take 2 minutes to talk to your neighbor, and if you can define for me what is Washback, and then I'll ask you in a couple of minutes. So just 2 minutes, please. have a chat about it? Oh, the idea is if you sit next to another person and just try to think what Washback is for you. What is Washback in the classroom to you? Okay, well, there's lots of discussion going on. Maybe I'd better just stop us there before everyone starts talking about their shopping list for later, and just see if, does anyone want to just share with us what they've thought in terms of Washback? What is Washback in the classroom? Can you put up your hand? Yes.
For me, the term itself was a mystery. I'll do that. The term itself was a mystery, but what I understood now is that when we test students, we sort of negate the effect of learning to a certain extent. It is learning which has to be prioritized and not tested. So that is to achieve a balance between learning and testing. That was something which I understood.
That's very helpful. Thank you. And maybe on this side, I think there was something else? Or is it the same?
Something that you've already learned and you get the feedback. It reflects on you. Is what we discuss, and that's what we got over here.
Thank you. And maybe just a couple more, see if we can get something else. We'll go here, here, and then we'll stop if that's okay.
I think it is the effect that the knowledge that there is going to be a test, this has on the teaching, and what happens in preparation of the test. I think this is part of Washback.
I think so too. I think there's quite a lot of answers to this question, which is why we're sharing.
I think recall of the knowledge, recalling the knowledge of a student.
Recording the knowledge.
Recalling.
Recalling.
Yes.
Recalling the knowledge of a student. Thank you. And last, definitely not least.
Thanks. Yes, we talked about the effect that it has on teaching, what testing does on teaching, and the positive and negative backwash or washback, where if, for example, there was a case that this gentleman here noted in India where if speaking isn't tested, then it isn't focused on in the classroom, and then that's a negative washback in that kind of situation. But the opposite is the positive, where it gets you to improve maybe your learning tasks and what you're focusing on teaching in the classroom.
Thank you. I think they're all very helpful. Let's look at what our favourite researcher has said on the subject. This is Tony Green from the University of Bedfordshire, who defines Washback as the impact that a test has on the teaching and learning done in preparation for it. So the impact of the test on teaching and learning done in preparation for it. But as we have seen today, you can define Washback in different ways. This is one researcher's way of defining it. Now, just moving on from that slightly, and building on what other researchers have also said, including Hughes, Wall, and Tony Green. The thing is, a lot of early research into Washback focused on the test and the task types on the tests, through the implementation of curriculum design and the teacher. And this was the beginning and end of Washback in the classroom. But what I think, I can't remember if it was this lady or this lady here focused on, which is very helpful, is that more recently, and hopefully in the future, researchers are going to start seeing the value of investigating the learner and his or her attitudes as an influence on the success or otherwise in test scores, and as a result on Washback. So what influence the learner and the learner's attitudes and learning outcomes also have on Washback. This adds an additional dimension to thinking about Washback, and what we're going to be exploring today in this session is the relationship between learners, teachers, and the test. And as I said earlier, this presentation will draw on the work of Tony Green. Now, therefore, given what I've just said, the big question then, I think, for today is, how can we measure washback, so this impact, how can we measure it without taking into account factors other than the test? Or, to make the question more simple, what factors influence success in a test? What are the factors that influence success in a test? It's not just the test and the task types. So again, this one's coming back to you. Your groups of 2, 3 people, please. Could we just have another, this time I'll give you 3 minutes. I'll give you a little bit longer. Oh, yes, could we do something revolutionary? Could we, in our groups, if you're in pairs particularly, could you allocate 1 speaker and 1 writer? And could the writer just note down a few things that you think influence success on tests? And can the speaker be prepared to tell the rest of the group at the end of the 3 minutes? I may even give you 4 minutes. There you go. Okay, so what are the factors that influence success on a test, bearing in mind the learner, the teacher as well? 4 minutes, 1 speaker and 1 writer in each group.
She introduced her mother, so she will dominate. It's a momentum.
Great, okay, now let's see. Was there a young gentleman with a microphone? Ah, there he is. Okay, super. Lovely. Yes. So, okay, let's see. Let's try and, take a representative sample of the groups around the room and see. So we'll start with the gentleman at the back then. Yes, if you could please, shout it out into your microphone so we can hear. What kind of things have you talked about? I'll be making notes if you've got something that I don't.
Good morning, everyone. With help of my colleagues, we arrived at some points. Presence of mind and common sense. Previous exposure to similar kinds of tests. Time management. Understanding test instructions. Most importantly, understanding what we are supposed to do while attempting a test. And quality of questions that will be interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's quite interesting. You have already touched on one that I hadn't got on our list, which was a previous test exposure. So that's interesting. Shall we move to another group? Anyone else want to share thought? The lady in red and then the lady in black.
So, morning everyone. The thing is, first thing, what we discussed with our colleagues, the confidence and clarity and knowledge about the test and the presentation, time management and accuracy and more appropriate to the questions and diction. These are the things.
Thank you. Would it be right in saying that the things that your group are, you're very much focusing on the learner and particularly the effective aspects of the
Yes.
learner?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So
good morning. We mentioned the clarity of the questions or the tasks, the atmosphere of the classroom, psychological factors, material size, expectations based on teaching, level of the learners, the aims, whether they are clarified from the beginning, learners' awareness of the goal and their understanding of the material and the course in general, and their expectation of the teacher. There are some double factors here for learners and teachers: psychological, material size, wise. Okay, that's it.
I think, I think people would agree there that the aims and objectives that of the learners or the teachers is a very important thing. Yes. Where are we going now? Should we go over this side, maybe to the lady in white and then the lady in grey and white?
When it comes to the success of the test itself, I think aspects like content validity, face validity are important. Apart from that, reliability of the scores that would result from the test, authenticity of the tasks, practicality of the test, and last would be washback. That would decide if the test would be successful enough or not.
Thank you. There you're focusing very much on the test. So it's great. We've got all kinds of different aspects here. And then the lady.
Good morning. What we discuss in a groups are students' behavior, their active participation, interaction with the peers and the teachers, attitude to learn, practical implication means how they are apply in day-to-day life, intrinsic motivation, then student queries, how they will ask to the teachers, the presentation, debates, and the last one is punctuality, regularity, and their sincerity. What we discuss is. Thank you.
Thank you. And perhaps lastly, the gentleman at the back.
Good afternoon to all the people present here. I think the single largest factor in the success of test is understanding the factors that are contributed to the rubrics that were taken into account while designing the test, and measuring the level of achievement within the sub-factors of the rubric. I think when we have a rubric for the test and all, we'll be taking into account a number of factors like content validity, like the other factors of the test, normally in the English language. And when the test is conducted, taking into account the sub-factors of the rubric, that would determine the success in the test. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, sir. Okay, good. Now, I'm not going. I think we could have a long, long debate about which of all of those are more or less important, but we won't have time for that today. What I did want to try to do was to group all of these things together into 4 sections. And I'm pretty sure that you have all said elements of things that my co-researcher and I thought about when putting this presentation together. But I'll just go through these and try to group them together. I may miss some of the things that you've said, and there may be some things that I say that you didn't think of previously. In terms of the learning outcomes, this is quite important. I think it refers to what the lady over there said about what are the aims and objectives of the students when they go onto a course or when they are preparing for a test. This is really quite important. You know, are their aims short-term, medium-term, long-term? Are they focusing on, are they just preparing for a test? Is it just a short-term preparation course? Or are their objectives long-term? Are they trying to improve their general English? Or are, in fact, they not their aims at all? Maybe they're their parents' aims or the school's aims, and in fact, the people are in the class and they don't know what their aim is. So that's it. There's a piece there around outcomes, which is really quite important. And then a lot of you also spoke about the learning context. So if they do know roughly what they're there for, what's their motivation? Are they really motivated? Are they there to do well? Or are they there just to make their parents or their family or their peers happy? Or are they there, in fact, just to be with their friends? To that end, did they enroll, or did somebody enroll them? And also, and I don't think anyone did mention this one in terms of, are they in their home country, or are they abroad? And if they are in their home country, you know, what's the motivation? What are they doing it for? And if they're abroad, what other factors, therefore, are in play there? Are they in language classes with people of their own language, or are they with people of lots of different languages? Where are they living? Are they with a host family or not? How are they feeling? There's a whole range of factors there to be considered. So in terms of learning context, there's a lot there. And then several of you, I can't remember where it was, but several of you also talked about the effective part. I think it was down here, the students themselves. You know, it makes a great difference, their level of confidence, their level of self-esteem, and the classroom dynamic due to that. And also what I don't think was mentioned, and this is one which is, you know, this is hard as well for language testers, learning preferences and learning styles. That then with all of the things that we've just discussed, but some people learn in different ways, and some people are better suited to some types of task than others. So it's quite complicated. And then what you did focus on as well was the pedagogy of, obviously, the teaching styles as well. So it's not all about the learner, it's also about the teacher. What is the teacher doing there? How good are they at managing all of these things? And are they trying to teach to the test, or are they also trying to actually develop people's knowledge? So it's a whole suite of things to think about. Before I go on, does anyone want to just add anything to what we've said? Is there anything else that we've missed? I think between all of us, we've got a whole lot of things. No, okay, I'll move on. So, as I was saying earlier research into Washback focused very much on the test only. And you know, that is, of course, valid and important. It is very important, and I would argue, you know, key that we do focus on validity, reliability, impact, practicality of the test in terms of Washback. It is important, but more recent research, and we hope future research, will put the learner at the center. So where the learner is at the center of what is happening, yes, of course, the teacher and the test do influence, but do influence what is happening, but it's the interaction between all of these three parties that really determines the washback in the classroom. This is the key thing. We cannot continue to underestimate the importance of the learner and learning in the whole dynamic process. We have to start looking at the relationships in the classroom that work together to make effective learning. So we move from thinking about the learner as a recipient, the test and the test preparation and all of these things, to thinking about the learner as a crucial and influential element in the test preparation process. And therefore, another quote from Tony Green: a well-designed test should encourage good teaching. A poorly designed test will tempt teachers and learners into practices that have limited value in relation to long-term learning goals. So we're thinking all the time here about that whole interaction between the teacher, the learner, and the test. There's three things there that we need to think about. I'm now going to move on to talk a little bit about IELTS, unsurprisingly. What you might be surprised about is that, I'm not going to claim at this stage that IELTS is the solution to everything. I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is illustrate some aspects of IELTS, then we're going to leave it to you to go away and think about. So what is the, in terms of the test, obviously, again, it's all about the test, the learner, and the teacher. But in terms of the test, is IELTS a suitable test in terms of washback? So I'll look briefly at an overview of the format of the test, validity and reliability, as mentioned here, and how this is resulting in increased accessibility and acceptance worldwide. I think many of you will be familiar with IELTS, with the test format. I think you know it's jointly owned by British Council, IDP IELTS Australia, and Cambridge English Language Assessment. And I think you also know that there's two versions of the test, IELTS Academic and IELTS General Training. The test is done in a total of a maximum of 3 hours. And of course, it tests 4 skills: listening, reading, writing, and speaking. Listening is 30 minutes, reading 60 minutes, writing 60 minutes. The reading and writing are different on the general training test. The listening and speaking tests are the same. The speaking consists of 3 parts and 11 to 14 minutes. Okie dokie. And of course, the key thing that does set IELTS apart from many other tests is the face-to-face speaking element. I'll just focus on this for a couple of minutes because it is very important. 3 parts to the speaking test: the introduction and overview, then an individual long turn where the test taker is asked to speak for a few minutes on a topic that is given to them. And then, lastly, the third part, a 4 to 5 minute two-way discussion, which allows the examiner to elicit more speaking content from the test taker. This face-to-face speaking test takes place in a private room. And obviously, it's an interactive process between the examiner and the test taker. And obviously, IELTS believe that this prompts a more realistic, authentic performance from the test taker. And therefore, we believe this has an influence on the validity of the test. And then in terms of the scores on IELTS, the test taker receives a score on all 4 skills, which is then averaged to produce an overall band score. And the key thing here is that the scores haven't changed over the years. So one would hope that over the last 25 years, everyone has got used to the band score scale, which goes from 0, from someone who did not attempt the test, up to 9 for expert users. The majority of people taking IELTS are somewhere between a 5 and a 7. The key thing here is that the scores haven't changed over the years, so they are well understood by teachers, learners, and of course the people accepting the IELTS scores, the receiving organizations, the universities, professional associations, governments that use IELTS scores. However, as we alluded to earlier, it is a fine balance. It's all a fine balance, creating a test. Very fine balance. It's, as we've talked about, people have different learning styles. Some people will prefer one thing, some people will prefer another. So test creators have to consider this all the time. But also it's a very fine balance when you're putting together what was mentioned here earlier. The balance between validity, reliability, impact, and practicality. As you will notice from the slide, in terms of Washback, I want to focus particularly on validity. Now, somebody said this earlier, but I can't remember who it was now. But in terms of validity, can somebody just define for us what is validity on an English language test? Or what is validity in any test? Yes, sir.
Can I sit and speak?
Yes.
Something, it depends on the users probably. If the same test could be implemented on the learners of India or in Africa or in Nepal. So what's the validity of the test designing? That's what the validity. Maybe for the different sort of learners, let's say people fall in the category of B2 or B1, the same test, if it is tested on different learners, if the validity would be maintained, that shows the authenticity of the test. This is what maybe I assume.
I think we're getting there, but I think we need to just find something a little bit more succinct to describe validity. Perhaps should we ask the lady in white?
If the test tests what it is supposed to test, then the test is valid. There are various types of validity, as I said, content validity, face validity. If we look at content validity, if the content tests what it aims at, then the content is valid.
Thank you. Yes. So I think between those two answers, I think we're getting to the point. I mean, the key thing is that validity. It does the test what you want it to test. But of course, it's also important that it tests what you want it to test for all the different groups of people around the world. So that's very important too. I won't get into the detail of content validity and face validity today because we don't have time. But now that we've got clear what validity is, I'm going to ask you to go back into your pairs, but this time just very briefly, just for 1 minute. If you just look at this slide, so in your pairs, just look at this slide, the multiple choice test, and this slide, where people are being asked to put some words or a number into the answers below to the questions that are there. Which of those two test task types would you consider to be more valid? So just back in your pairs again, just for 1 minute. Okay, thank you. Maybe somebody else who hasn't participated thus far, do you want to tell us which of these two you think is more valid? Sorry, which of multiple choice and word answers? Anybody here? Yes, sir. This one you prefer for validity? Can you tell us why?
Here there is a scope to Here there is a scope to think. Here there is a scope to think what I have to write there. There you're blindly marking something. There you don't have the chance to think what I'm doing there. Even you're not prepared, you can attempt that one. Here you have to think. It may be the answer is maybe the very close to one another. So there you are applying your knowledge, analysis. So this is the better one, and we are familiar with this. Mostly in Indian examination pattern, we see much more than. So it makes us to think very well. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. That for me is a fine answer because, of course, that's the task type on the IELTS test. But let's see if somebody has the opposing view. Oh. I think we're over there.
Hello. My answer is it depends on the type of the question, I think so. If it is a closed question, let's select the first choice. If it is an open question, I'll go to this section 2, this one, I think so. But my friend has a different answer. She doesn't want with me. So I would like to give the phone, shall I? Yeah.
I think that's...
It's both.
Exactly.
Depend on the test.
I think we'll stop there.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll stop there. And also, can I just introduce another element? Referring back to what we were saying earlier, does it depend on the learner as well?
Yes.
Because learners will work in different ways. Let's stop there and carry on to the next part. If
Yes,
that's
okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Now let's think about the speaking test. As you know, there are tests that test speaking through computer prompts, where people need to speak into a computer. And there are those that test speaking with a two-way interactive test, or in some cases a 3- or 4-way interactive test. Now again, thinking about those two different types of testing speaking, and thinking about validity only, here we're concentrating on validity. Does the test do what you want it to do? Again, back with your groups. 1 minute. Which of these is more valid?
Searching for a person, my friend. I am searching.
Are we having fun? That's the main objective. Okay. Anyone, maybe over this side, does someone want to tell us what they thought? The gentleman in black. Which one? Sorry. Thank you, sir. Okay. We will take one more opinion, but just before we move on from that, so just on that, of course, you know, many people consider that face-to-face testing for speaking is more valid, and as we know, that's what IELTS is built around. But of course, it's valid if people have been doing face-to-face activities in their learning context, in their learning environments, in their classes, in their general English classes, their test preparation classes. What may be problematic in terms of impact is if you're not doing practice of interactive face-to-face in your classes, and then you're asked to go and do a test, an interactive test, or vice versa. If you're doing lots of interactive speaking practice in class, and then you're asked to go and do a computer-based test. So this can be problematic. We'll just take one other opinion there. Perhaps stuck between you. I'll go for the lady in. Have to go with the lady. Sorry, the lady in yellow.
Thank you, sir. I want to say that when we are having person-to-person speaking test, it is a bit psychological also. Beside verbal language, there is non-verbal transmission or interchange of interaction is there. And so computer cannot smile for me. So that's a great motivation for me. If you are interviewing me, I'm the gladdest person on this earth. Thank you.
Can I quote you on that?
Thank you, all of you.
We'll put you in our brochure. No. Thank you very much. Okay. I mean, so we could go on all day, and it's very interesting. I think, you know, as well, I have to point out here, we're talking about the test and the test-centered parts. Keep reminding you, remember about the learner and the learning parts that we spoke about earlier. Here, where we're talking about the test and the test-centered parts, there's, you know, I think a lot of people are agreed here, but of course there will always be different opinions because no test can ever be perfect in all it tries to do. There are, you know, whatever you're trying in terms of a test or in terms of a class, and there are always restrictions of some kind of time or space or availability or whatever it is, and so, you know, we have to bear that in mind too. Just, let me see, do we have time for a bit more? Yes, we've got a little bit of time. I'll have to go a little bit quicker now, but just to reassure people on reliability, this is less related now to the Washback piece, but on reliability, I just wanted to zoom in on this just for a moment, because sometimes people say, bear with me, lost my place. Sometimes people say that having face-to-face interactive speaking tests with humans, with other humans, that can impact on the reliability because the human examiner may be in a bad mood or a good mood or whatever on one day or the other. So people also say that at some times. So I just wanted to talk here about these. What do you think these three figures might be? Are they Usain Bolt's times at doing the 100 meters? What do you think they are?
Height. Maybe he's attempting an high jump.
These are actually the... They are his timings. They're his timings on the 100 meters. Indeed, they are. Whoops. But they are also those figures there are also correlations of reliability that have been prepared by Cambridge Assessment on the reliability of different tests. Now, I'm just going to, yeah, I'll ask you here. We won't go into all the technical details or anything, but which of those three do you think is a face-to-face test reliability score, and which do you think are computer-based reliability scores? Correct, exactly, it is. That's the thing. 10.09 is a reliability score from one of several, I can't even remember now, computer-based tests. But also one of these two are really quite similar scores, not a huge difference. One of these is a face-to-face, and one of these is a computer-based test. So the point I'm making here is that the difference in reliability between computer-based and face-to-face speaking tests is actually quite, when the academics and the researchers actually measure it, it can be quite minimal, the difference. So in terms of reliability, the difference can be minimal, but in terms of validity, which we were talking about earlier, the difference, as the vast majority of people in this room agreed, in terms of validity, the difference is huge. And also, we would argue in terms of washback in the classroom. So, last but definitely not least, so what impact has all of this had on the IELTS test over the last 25 years? Well, I think what is becoming clear is that the students or the test takers are voting with their feet, and we're seeing a massive increase in the numbers of IELTS tests taken, particularly over the last 6 years. It's a very beautiful graph. As you can see, we've gone from just over 1 million in 2008 up to 2.5 million in 2014. That's around the world. And also very, very important, it's increasing access to the test. Very, very important, and that is what we're trying to do. Each year you will see that our numbers go up. We're now testing at over 1,000 testing locations in over 140 countries. It's no point in being valid, reliable, having washback in the classroom if the people can't access the test. And I can also happily confirm that we'll soon be testing in Angola as well. And also the acceptance of IELTS is increasing every year. It's now accepted by over 9,000 organizations worldwide. Over 3,000 of those are in the US. All immigration agencies that require an English language test accept IELTS. And new, hot off the press, which is why we have to go and meet the media shortly, is that it's just been announced that IELTS will be the only English language test. This is further to a competitive tender that happened in the UK at the end of last year. IELTS will now be the only English language test accepted worldwide to support applications for UK visas and immigration. That's a small segment of people going to the UK, but nevertheless it is strong endorsement of the IELTS test. Obviously people going to the UK for higher and further education, for studies with a highly trusted sponsor, have a certificate of acceptance of studies, are not in that particular category. They can continue to take any English language test, but for people applying for specifically for visas, for family visas, etc., they will be required to take IELTS. And that brings me towards the end of the presentation, but just to loop back right to the very beginning where we started, another quote from Tony Green: Washback research has suggested that the issue facing educators is not so much the influence of tests on teaching and learning, can't speak now, on teaching and learning, as an interaction between the tests and teaching and learning. So it's not just the influence of the test, although that is important, I would argue, but it's also the interaction between the tests, teaching and learning. This is the research that we have referenced in preparing this presentation. And also just to mention that this presentation was prepared by my colleague Meena Patel and I together, but Meena was unfortunately unable to join us today. She sends her apologies. And if there are any questions, you're very welcome to email her at meena.patel@britishcouncil.org.my. As I said earlier, I'm very sorry. I do hope that you've found this presentation and discussion, I hope it's been an interactive discussion more than anything. I hope you found it interesting. I've almost got no time for questions because I have to move on to preparing for the media interview. But if you have questions, I think what would be great is if you could come to the IELTS stand in the exhibition hall and we could have a longer chat about it. I think that'd be really, really helpful. I'll be there this afternoon and my colleagues are there all day. And also if you have specific questions about things that I haven't covered, please do take down this email, meena.patel@britishcouncil.org.my, and she'll be happy to provide more answers. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a lovely day.